Hey everybody, I guess the phone got overheated even though it's not super hot today, it's just real humid and muggy. Anyway, I'm back now and I think I know where the camera left off, so let's see if I can finish you up here pretty quickly. So let's switch out the camera. So in my previous part of the video, you saw me talking about this area. You saw it a lot more grown up. And waiting out, 10 minutes maybe, if that, to let the phone cool down a little bit. I pulled out all these weeds, and that's one of the benefits of when it's rained. 2, 3, 5-gallon buckets worth of weeds and crowded plants were pulled out in just a very short amount of time. If you can make it to the garden after you've had lots of rain, it makes it a lot easier to pull those weeds out. So what I was showing you when the thing overheated was the cornfield. And this corn has gotten fairly good. I mean, some of this is almost 5 foot tall at the very peak. And you can see there, corn cobs are going to be starting pretty soon. And this was just the lazy man's method of growing corn. Took the weed eater and weed eated, where you can see all that brown grass clippings are now. Just weed eated there and grew the corn. What worked best is growing it, get rid of some bugs there. What worked best was growing the seedlings inside and then bringing them out here. And they've been doing really good, so the corn's good. And some of the corn that was planted later on is here. You'll see squash plants too. Squash and zucchini underneath. That's something that the Native Americans did, from what I've read. They even would plant beans. So they grow corn, they put the squash to keep down the weeds underneath, and then they would also put like beans to trellis up the corn naturally and get a lot more out of it. So overall, I'd say that this is working really well to keep a lot of the grass down. I'm going to try a little bit of cardboard there too to see, but I've already harvested one zucchini, and if we look closely here, can you see that? There's another couple zucchini in there that are growing. And I think I have a squash. Yeah, let me show you the squash. I haven't harvested any of these yet, but there's the first squash growing. So these viney things are going to really produce well, and there's more flowers, and they're starting to produce. So that's going to do good. We'll see how it does. Now let me show you the blackberry patch. It's done extremely well. And as you can see, I'm sure in the video, there are lots and lots of more berries. And I've harvested, I don't know, probably 1.5 cups, 2 cups today. There's even more in there that I could have if you look. They're a little harder to get to, but see the blackberries in there? And they've just done really well. And I've even pruned this thing up a couple times this year. But like, look there, massive amount of berries. And these were just ones dug up in the woods nearby. The local wild Missouri blackberries, they do really well. And there's more, those things are like weeds, the daylilies. And I was telling you, I think in the video before, something I'm reading, I've read it a couple different places, is saying that in Asia they grow that as a vegetable in like several different parts of it. I've not tried it yet or looked into it a ton, but that was kind of interesting. It's definitely something that grows well in Missouri, if that's true. So that is the end, I believe, of the garden tour. I think I showed you where stuff ended up. One thing I want to show you that's in the shed here, though, before I get off, is how I've been drying some stuff. So this is spinach, and I'm hopeful, because the spinach has gone to seed, I believe, I'm hopeful this starts to dry out and I can do this. And this right here is radish. The seed pods, they're almost like little peas, a little tangier, but try to grow those, dry those out, pardon me, and get some seed for next year. That seems to work really, really well. So that's the garden tour. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to comment in the comments tips, tricks that you know of. Each year I just keep adding on more and more. This year is probably going to be learning more about some basic food preparation, like how to turn all those zucchini into like zucchini bread and other things, rather than just frying it up in like stir fry. And same thing with probably a lot of tomatoes. Need to figure out some ways. So that's the goal this year. Last year was more expand the garden, trying some different types of plants, learning more about where to put the right plants and what shade and what area of the yard they work in, and seed preservation. That was last year. One of the biggest things about homesteading that I have read, I think, several times is you just always try new stuff. It's part of the journey. You keep trying, you keep learning, you keep experimenting with things. You always learn more. So it's really cool. A lot of spiritual reminders too, as I'm pruning all this stuff and pulling up a lot of weeds. There's a spiritual reminder to this. If you don't pay attention, weeds can take over your life real quickly. Those weeds aren't a plant in your life, but they're other things, and they can just sap the life out of you. And pruning, you gotta prune a plant to make it more fruitful. And you may be pruning out dead stuff. You may be pruning stuff that seems to be growing pretty good, but it's just growing in the wrong spot. It's a good thing, but it's not a God thing. It's not the direction that it needs to go to be the most productive plant. And so there's a lot of spiritual lessons too I'm reminded of. And gardening, it's a great thing.